It all started with a welcome message to a game called Dreamside. Dreamside was the #1 trending game online and was played by people around the world, including idols. An emo kid named Kang inputted Katie as his name and was welcomed to Dreamside. Later, a dude with a sword executed the main protagonist's walk after defeating a monster. His eyes glowed and he smirked, raising his sword. He claimed his life goal was to be #1 on Dreamside. Some time later, Kang's eyes shone brightly. He knew that Dreamside 2 was launching that day but was shocked with the system message in front of him. A few minutes ago, he was on his phone, tapping it like he was on crack, as he tried to pre-order Dreamside 2. Suddenly, the lift stopped and he fell. Kang began to panic since the button didn't work and it wasn't Sigma to call for help. While waiting, a system message appeared. He was familiar with it, but then it asked him to confirm. He had a loose screw, so he felt it was his duty to click the button. After confirming, Kang received a quest. His quest was to avoid being devoured by parasites in the next 1 minute, and if he failed,
It's Jover.
he was shocked that his life was at stake. Just then, he turned and spotted an intrusion of cockroaches on the lift. A cockroach climbed his head, and he screamed like a little girl. A short while later, he gasped, glad he was able to complete the quest in time and was rewarded with a sword. After looking back, he noticed the elevator opened. A portal gate appeared, and it was similar to that of Dreamside. Things didn't add up, and he thought maybe he was high on crack. Just then, he spotted a monster and was scared of getting backshots. A goblin assaulted him, and after feeling such pain, he knew he wasn't stoned. His AP was low, and he knew he had to bounce but wondered how. It hit him that if he ran and got hit, he was a goner. The goblin was prepared to attack, and he got scared. After looking at it again, he realized it was just another midget with anger issues. He was distracted, and the goblin launched an attack. After evading the attack, he knew how lucky he was. He stood up and ran, however, he was restricted by the system from leaving the area. Upon discovering this, he knew he was cooked. The goblin then threw its mallet at him, but he was able to dodge it. He was frightened, until he got a system message that his account had been linked. The system gave him a server shutdown reward and some adjustments were made. Suddenly, he felt calm and wondered if it was a skill. The goblin then took its mallet and approached him. He realized the goblin was trash in the game and knew his chances of winning were high. The goblin ran towards him and jumped. Fortunately, he struck the goblin and was able to make a goblin beef kebab out of it. Suddenly, a bunch of magic circles appeared, and he realized it wasn't over. He remembered in Dreamside, goblins attacked in groups, and then the goblins appeared. He was scared at first, but realized he had plot armor with him. The goblins were eliminated, and the system gave him the title Mean Slaughter. After defeating the goblins, he received a reward and realized it was just like the game. He figured it could be AR, but wondered why he felt so Sigma. He concluded that it was from the adjustments the system made earlier. He called out for his stats and a system message appeared. His stats were trash, but he noticed he had an S-rank skill that was restricted. It was a skill he got while grinding for a month, and realized how sad his life was. He wondered if the skill was the system reward he got before. Dreamside was a popular game that flopped because of its difficulty. Players had to type in individual commands to cast a spell, which made new users quit immediately. In the game, players had only 3 lives, and when the lives were exhausted, the character got deleted. Regardless of this, there were 12 top players deemed inhuman in the game. They were the honored ones, but the top 1 player was him. Suddenly, the server went down after some years, and there was a poll hosted on the game's homepage. He was asked to pick the items he wanted to bring to Dreamside 2, which was how he got the server shutdown reward. Kang didn't expect to receive the reward like that, and wished he had picked a better item. He checked the system, but was restricted from accessing his skill. Kang figured out his heavenly body skill was what made him calm and able to use his sword. He remembered he got 2 more rewards, but knew it was useless at his current level. Kang heard some noise, thinking it was a monster. Suddenly, he received a quest to avoid a wave of parasites within 10 minutes. Kang stared at the message, knowing he was cooked. He wondered why he couldn't catch a break. Meanwhile, in another area, the Goblin King appeared with its goblin. Later that day, an area was shaking. A girl in a building wondered what was going on. She decided to head out, but was greeted by a goblin who wanted her digits. Meanwhile, some couple's Netflix and chill was interrupted by magic circles. They couldn't comprehend the situation and were suddenly attacked. On the street, people screamed after seeing the goblins. A while later, Kang could hear the noise and wondered if the quest had started. He realized things had gotten real and wondered how many people had lost their lives. Dungeonization was an event where a normal area became swarmed by monsters. It was a core concept of Dreamside. Kang was shocked his hood was dungeonized and knew only Dreamside players could face the goblins. He pondered on his next move. Kang noticed the goblins weren't after him and figured they couldn't leave their block. The only way he could clear the mission was to escape within 10 minutes, and he decided to head to the roof. Kang could clear the quest by escaping through the roof, but he was worried about the people in the building. Kang knew the only way he could save them was to raid the dungeon. He figured the dungeon boss hated light, concluding it was in the basement. He wondered how he could get there in 10 minutes, but then he spotted a portal gate. Kang decided to go through the portal gate and was transported to the basement parking lot. He was surprised it worked and was glad he had a substitute for Uber. The goblins were being vigilant, so Kang hid. Just then, some portal gates appeared, which the goblins used to enter the building. Kang knew the only way to stop them was to defeat the dungeon boss, and wondered where it was. Suddenly, he spotted a huge mass of ugliness, which was the dungeon boss. Kang felt it looked more like Hulk than a goblin. He had a plan but needed to wait for the right time to execute it. After a minute was left for the dungeonization, the monsters had a shortness of breath, and Kang used the opportunity to attack. In Dreamside, players knew about the shortness of breath at the last minutes of dungeonization and used it to grind. Kang was glad it worked and planned to get rid of the cannon fodder. He spotted a car and jumped over it, leading the goblin towards him. The goblins acted wild, but then they couldn't figure out where Kang was. A while back, Kang equipped an item that made the goblins dumber than Patrick's star. He was glad he equipped it and decided to deal with the Goblin King. Suddenly, the Goblin King mustered its strength and tried to hit Kang. Kang wondered if the shortness of breath was done, but realized the dungeon boss forced itself. Kang knew he had to end things quickly and went for the attack. After a barrage of attacks, he was able to cut off the goblin's head. Some time later, the city had a post-apocalyptic vibe. There were cars out of place and no one on the streets. Some people had lost their lives in a car accident. A radio was playing and suddenly there was an explosion. The morning ended up being the last for some people. The incident happened within 10 minutes at the center of the city, but took over the country in an instant. As a result, the internet went wild with Reddit theories, but the government hid the truth. At the end of the day, people began to doubt the incident. A while later, a lady was tended to by her makeup artist and told her about the incident, claiming it was CGI. She saw the video and realized it was Dreamside. Hannah the lady watched the video and saw the monster attacking people. She was shocked that dungeonization actually took place there. Hannah was a popular idol known for her music and songwriting. She was the Beyoncé of their country. However, her manager told her that her show had been canceled for the day. She was surprised with the news and showed him the video. The manager wondered how she got her phone and reminded her that she would be scolded by the president. He wondered if it was a movie, but she told him it was real. She yelled that Dreamside had become real, and he was fed up with her addiction to Dreamside. She told him to hand over the phone. Hannah was a closeted nerd who played Dreamside. Hannah had the American spirit, so her player was the best player who used guns. Her fans didn't know she was a gaga for Dreamside. She used a voice changer and her player was a middle-aged man named Clark. Meanwhile, Hannah begged her manager to hand over her phone. The manager revealed he was going to snitch on her, and she got mad. The manager threatened to take her to rehab, but then the place shook and everyone fell. The manager wondered if it was an earthquake, and Hannah used the chance to get her phone. She told him she was going to confirm something and tried linking her account. She got a system message asking if she wanted to strap up. Hannah accepted and got her gun. She wondered if she was dreaming, but then a portal gate opened. Her manager told her to be careful, and she spotted a ghoul coming out of the portal gate. Hannah had a loose screw and was excited. She was ready to take a shot but realized there were no bullets. Unfortunately, her synchronization hadn't completed. She was able to evade the monsters, and after some time, the synchronization was complete. Hannah then one-shot at the monsters. Her manager wondered what was going on, and she told him to bounce. She decided to look for Katie since he knew much about the game. Meanwhile, Kang had defeated the Goblin King and stopped the dungeonization. The monsters disappeared, but the destroyed buildings and blood still remained. Suddenly, a portal gate appeared and Kang figured it was the gate to the Labyrinth of choice. It was the last stage of the tutorial, where players got rewarded with a skill. Kang was excited to start the tutorial again. Later, Kang was transported to the Labyrinth of Choice. He wondered how they made the game so real since he could smell the surroundings. Suddenly, portal gates appeared behind him with different difficulties. The harder the level, the stronger the skill one could get from it. Kang's choice was the Hell difficulty since he was Sigma, but had one problem. He remembered that Hell difficulty was designed not to be cleared. The bug wasn't fixed even though players complained. He was the only one who completed the Hell difficulty, but had lost a lot of accounts before achieving it. A system message showing the amount of players in the Labyrinth of Choice appeared. Kang was shocked with how many players were involved and concluded that the incident was a global crisis. He imagined the amount of people that would lose their lives and gave them a minute of silence. Knowing his life was on the line, he decided to go with the Hell difficulty. A while later, he arrived within a dome. His quest was to protect a statue from the golems within 5 minutes, or he was cooked. The golems attacked at once, but he was able to defeat them. He was surprised the golems were trash and wondered if it was because of his skill. Kang smirked, realizing the battle had just begun. A system message appeared, informing him of being nerfed while the golems were increased. Kang knew he had to think 2 steps ahead of the blockheads. He continued the onslaught, slicing and blocking their attacks until the time elapsed. He completed the quest and unlocked a hidden quest that could only be found in Hell difficulty. The golems came together, morphing to form a giant blockhead, which was the hidden boss. The golem screamed like an anime girl, and Kang had to purify his ears. The golem was about to flatten him, but he dodged. It tried again, but Kang managed to escape and slice the monster. His sword was beyond rusty, but it was able to damage the golem. Kang ran, though he knew he needed to defeat the monster to get the reward. He checked the system, then found something. He smirked and then unequipped his sword for a hammer. In a short while, Kang taunted the golem, then rushed at it with his hammer. He broke the goblin's fingers and knew his plan would work. He was attacked but evaded it. Kang smashed and broke its hand. The golem shrieked like it was receiving backshots. Kang knew he could take it down if he destroyed its core. The core was way high, so he ran towards the goblin and broke its leg. The goblin fell on his back and Kang used the opportunity to smash its core. After the impact, it was light out for the golem. Kang was glad it was finally over. A congratulatory message popped up, and he was glad he had the hammer in his inventory. Suddenly, Kang received a pop-up message of his reward, which was an increase in his stats. He was awarded some XP and unlocked his Dragon Eye skill. His stats were so good he began to drool. He activated the Dragon Eye, but he knew this was just the beginning. In Dreamside, it took him a month to clear the tutorial. A few moments later, Kang was slicing around, defeating slime monsters. He stood acting sus in front of the slime monsters. He smirked, yelling that they didn't last long. Kang loved the Dragon Eye, and was glad he showed the slime who their daddy was. Suddenly, his diddy senses were tingling, and he threw a dagger at a tree. A dark entity came out of the tree, and Kang was confident he couldn't miss with his Dragon Eye. A system message appeared of a hidden mission, and the enemy was about to show itself. A MILF slime demon appeared. She began to boast and spoke like a forgettable background character. She claimed he was cocky and would send him to the afterlife. She looked towards his direction and couldn't spot him. Before she could think, she was sliced perfectly in half. She fell to the floor and wondered what happened. She couldn't take the L, so she made an excuse she wasn't at 100%. Kang told her if she thought he was weak, she must be a dumbass. He couldn't wait to make her take an L at her best. Suddenly, he got a system message that he had cleared all the stages in the tutorial. He received all the reward, and Kang was glad he was going back home. A few moments later, in the basement of his apartment, Kang came out of a portal gate. He realized he was in the basement and decided to check the date. Kang was shocked he had spent 3 months grinding. He decided to search for survivors in the apartment and to be up to speed with the current situation. Meanwhile, at high school, some survivors gathered. The survivors knew they were done for if they stayed idle without a plan. They had a cop with them, but felt he was crashing out. However, Disu, the cop, stood up and told them they had a day to clear the dungeon. A dude grabbed the officer and told him they couldn't raid an E-rank dungeon since they were trash. The cop knew they were scared but told them they had to, before a dungeon break occurred. A dungeon break was when monsters within a dungeon were multiplied and expelled out of the dungeon. The school had gone through a dungeon break before, and if another occurred, it would become a D-rank dungeon. The problem the cop had was that the players around were trash. He told them they were cooked if the dungeon increased to D rank. Juwon, one of the survivors, asked why the school dungeon was increasing while the remaining were still F rank. The cop revealed that it was because of the zombies in it. He explained that the zombies could contaminate anyone, so the rank of the dungeon could be increased. Jawan was left speechless. The cop revealed that since they were in a school, there were a lot of helpless victims for the zombies. He gave them a pep talk like Erwin Smith and ended it with Levy's popular line. Disu knew how reckless his plan was but was glad he had Hana with them. He then yelled out to charge in. At the same time, at Kang's apartment, he noticed there were no survivors in the building. A while later, he arrived at the high school and spotted the red portal gate. The colors showed the condition of the gates. The green was normal. The red was a sign of an upcoming dungeon break, and when it was completed, it turned black. A system message appeared showing that the dungeon outbreak would happen in 24 hours. He spotted some wood which was still warm and realized the survivors had just gone through. Kang was glad there was still time before the dungeon break, but unfortunately, he jinxed it. The time limit for the dungeon break reduced rapidly. He knew if things continued at that rate, the dungeon break would occur. Kang entered the portal gate to figure out the situation. He arrived and was surprised the structure within the school had increased in size. This was known as expansion, which occurred in dungeons higher than F rank. Suddenly, a skeleton attacked, but he was able to evade. He took out his sword, and the skeleton, brain dead, jumped at him. The skeleton was sliced, but it was persistent. Kang knew the only way to defeat it was to take down its core. He sliced it and stabbed its core. Kang leveled up and was glad to be back. Kang knew the skeleton was cannon fodder, so he expected a bunch of them. He had a quest to defeat 100 skeletons, so he rushed at them. He attacked them and was able to complete the quest. Kang spotted some defeated skeleton which he didn't crush. He decided to halt his grinding for the moment. Meanwhile, Disu and the others ran from an explosion and hid. Some survivors were trapped by the skeleton and cried for help. An hour ago, the survivors worked together to take care of the skeleton, and it was going smoothly. A player was glad he defeated a low-level skeleton and was about to be bitten by one. Fortunately, Hana shot the skeleton and told him to be careful. Suddenly, Mustang Fraud caused an explosion. The players panicked and the cop advised them to split up. The cop knew they were in deep shit and wondered who the people in cloak were. The cop thought they were monsters but figured their ability was too much for an E-rank dungeon. Disu told everyone to run, and the cop figured they were looking for the strongest member. Suddenly, a cloak member appeared, so the cop equipped his weapon and attacked. Mustang Fraud evaded the attack and called the cop's name. Disu wondered how he knew him, and Mustang Fraud used the opportunity to attack. Disu was able to escape, but Mustang Fraud wondered why he was escaping the inevitable. However, the cop was glad he got the spear as a server closing reward. He figured it was enough to damage Mustang Fraud, even though he was skilled. Disu rushed to attack him, confident he couldn't use his explosions on himself. Unfortunately, he wasn't the brightest and got attacked with an explosion. Disu took a deep breath like he was receiving backshots and knew he couldn't defeat him. Mustang Fraud was disappointed the cop didn't remember him, but then he did. There was a criminal, convicted for murder, and he realized it was him. Dongsu was a popular murderer. The cop wondered how a criminal became a player and realized there could be more. Disu accepted his L and lay flat on the floor. Dongsu revealed that no one would save him and his teammates were also survivors ahead. Disu was about to be blown when suddenly someone broke in. They wondered who it was, and Kang then revealed himself. A while later, Kang paused, trying to figure out the situation. He wondered if they had been in a fight. Mustang Fraud inquired on who he was, but the cop yelled that Kang should run away. Mustang Fraud flicked his fingers and caused an explosion. Disu was sad that Kang had lost his life. However, Kang's spider senses was activated. The cop was shocked to see Kang still breathing. Kang's dragon eye was active, and he understood the situation. He equipped his sword and knew defeating Mustang Fraud would be easy. Dongsu flicked his finger and Kang dodged the explosion. He realized Mustang Fraud was a red player. These were players known for eliminating other players and were cancerous to games. He remembered how they messed up his raid. While running, he spotted players ended by Mustang Fraud. He told Kang that he would let him go if he backed away. Kang had acted, but the cop yelled that he was a popular murderer. Dongsu was pissed that he was exposed, but Kang never planned on backing out. Kang's spider senses was activated, so he was able to detect and slay a camper on stealth mode. He told Dongsu he had to take responsibilities for his actions. Dongsu's trick of mixing ignition and gas was exposed, but Mustang Fraud was shocked he found out. Kang switched to his dagger and threw it at another member. He received a reward, and then he told Mustang Fraud his time had come. Kang rushed towards him like he wanted to kiss him, but Dongsu panicked. Kang told him to be man, but Dongsu decided to go all out with his attack. Kang summoned his dagger and then slashed his neck. Kang leveled up and was surprised the red players were acknowledged as mobs. Kang didn't feel pity for finishing up Dongsu since he deserved it. He obtained a dungeon grass and realized why the red players were in a hurry. A few moments later, the cop introduced himself to Kang and revealed that Dongsu had murdered his sister. He thanked Kang for saving him, but asked for his help in saving his teammates. Disu revealed that the prisoners had become players and had a way to avoid the monsters. Later, he told Kang they were after Clark, who was also Hannah, and Kang was shocked. After a while, Kang and Dasu were outside the auditorium. They were giving the red players a piggyback ride. Kang was still surprised Clark was a girl. The cop told him it was even more surprising that Clark was the famous idol, Hannah. Clark was known as the marksman for his American spirit, which no one had attained. Kang began to speak in gibberish and Dasu had no clue what he was saying. Kang couldn't still believe it since everything about them was different. The cop was glad Kang's plan of using the red players to avoid the monsters worked. Kang couldn't steal their inventory, so he decided to use them since their skills were active for 24 hours. They arrived at the gym and spotted a lot of defeated skeletons. Suddenly, a system message arrived, showing them they had 3 hours before the dungeon break. It was clear that someone was accelerating the progress of the dungeon break. The dungeon grass didn't sell well, but it was used to accelerate dungeon break. It was done by mixing dungeon grass and water to create a flower. Kang knew dungeon water was only available in B-rank dungeons and wondered how they got it. They concluded that someone got it as a server shutdown reward. Kang knew the prisoners couldn't fill out the survey and knew someone else was involved. Meanwhile, Hannah ran from an attack. Suddenly, some arrows were shot at her. She used her idol skills to evade and her hand began to hurt. She wondered why the men in cloak and the monsters were after her cake. She turned down the men in cloak, but couldn't understand why the monster didn't attack them. She yelled that she would end the men in cloak, but didn't have the balls to do it. It hit her that it was her life she was messing with and decided to take out the men in cloak. She made a headshot, and they realized why her American spirit was feared. They continued the attack, and she realized it wouldn't be long before she gets cooked. She found out her HP was low, and suddenly, a system message appeared that they had 3 hours before the dungeon break. She ran and wondered how she could defeat the monster within 3 hours. Suddenly, she halted and shot at the monster, knocking it out for 5 seconds. She activated her strongest attack skill and went behind the monster to take the shot. Just then, Kang arrived and told her to run away. She missed the shot, and the monster was about to slash her. Kang rushed towards her and activated his shield. She was saved and wondered who he was. After a while, Kang dropped Hannah. He asked if she was okay, but before she could reply, the monster interrupted Kang's Riz moment. It began its upgrade, and Hannah wondered if the monster had become a D-rank boss. She realized she didn't stand a chance but felt it was their chance to escape since its stats were adjusting. She told Kang they needed to bounce since they couldn't defeat the monster. She was also worried that the men in cloak could hinder their escape, but was willing to take her chances with them. She turned and dragged Kang, wondering if he thought he could beat the monster with his wax sword. He told her it might take a while with his sword. Kang asked to borrow the cop's spear, but he informed him that the weapon was meant for level 80 players. He grabbed the spear and had an aura. The spear was a magic spear that creates waves to increase its attack power. Hannah was shocked he activated the magic spear, but then remembered how she was saved like her knight in shining armor. It was obvious he was a high-level player. They paused, then Kang gave Hannah some healing potion. He smirked, ready to face the boss. Kang rushed at the monster, but the boss struck him with his sword. Kang blocked it and knew where the boss's weakness was and used a wave attack on it. The boss tried to strike him, but he evaded it. Kang realized he wasn't done adjusting, since it couldn't evade his attack. He was confident they could take the monster out since it was the trashiest of all D-rank bosses. Hannah told him to move and she shot at the boss. At that moment, Hannah was tripping when she realized he could afford high-ranking potions. She told her to focus since it wasn't the time to meet-tried him. She jumped and shot the boss, paralyzing it for 3 seconds. Kang then used the opportunity to test his javelin skills. He struck the boss with a magic spear, and after a while, it had holes around it. It fell, and they leveled up after clearing the dungeon. Meanwhile, the men in cloak waited for Hannah and were ready to jump her. A member felt she had kicked the bucket, since she couldn't defeat a D-rank boss at her level. They continued the lookout when suddenly they got a system message that the dungeon had been cleared. They couldn't believe it, but then the boss checked his phone. He realized that Kei had left the labyrinth of choice and decided to retreat. Kang handed back the magic spear. Just then, Hannah asked if Kang was Kei. Kang was surprised that Hannah was pumped up. He tried to verify her claims, but Daesu interrupted him. The cop had info that Kei was still in the labyrinth of choice and felt it was impossible for him to be there. With that, she doubted herself. The only reason she was around was to meet-tried Katie, and felt she jumped into conclusion because of Kang's feat. Kang's brain was short-circuiting. Hannah, embarrassed, thanked Kang for saving her butt. He told her not to worry, suggesting they look for other survivors. A while later, in an abandoned room, Daesu found the survivors. He was glad they survived even though they chickened out and hid like wussies. They apologized for being useless, but he told them not to worry. Kang was also glad they chickened out instead of fighting. He knew Daesu would play an important role later. A lady was worried about Hannah, and Hannah told her she was fine while panicking. Daesu informed Kang about their camp and Kang wondered where it was. A while later, Kang and Hannah faced the skeletons in their path, which left the survivors shocked. Kang was told they had arrived at the camp. A few moments later, they were in the train station. Kang knew that the skeleton monster couldn't inhabit the camp and wondered how they came across the place. Later, they met a lot of survivors. As soon as they spotted Daesu, the survivors rushed to greet him. An old man appeared. Glad was back to take the trash. He told the old man about their loss, but the old man insisted that he should rest. Daesu then met Kang and told him to rest. He sat on the floor, reflecting on the event that happened. Kang was about to doze off, but knew it wasn't Sigma. He used the chance to check his inventory and realized he had the blade of the skeleton king he defeated. He couldn't use the sword since he had a low level. He wondered how Daesu could use his magic spear, even though he wasn't in level 80. He wondered if one could use it for a small penalty. Kang collected his reward, which was a locked book. It was useless at the time, but it was the same book that made him number 1. An animal appeared in Kang's hand, and he had missed his pet, Gorong. Kang placed his fingers on its nose, and it awakened. It jumped, executing the tribal chief pose. Gorong was hungry and acted like it was on crack. Kang knew that it meant there was a dungeon nearby. After a while, Kang was grateful Gorong was in his hamster form instead of his original dragon form. Gorong was an old pet. He had that only ate dungeon monsters. Whenever it reacted, it involved a dungeon. Kang didn't understand why it reacted there. It reacting to normal players was out of the question since it would be its first. Meanwhile, Glasses was simping a lady. Kang was worried there might be skeletons in their camp, then realized the chances were slim. He concluded that either Gorong was malfunctioning or shit was about to go down. Kang felt Gorong's ability could have been limited. Suddenly, he spotted someone laying on the floor with his nails done. He looked sus, so Kang figured he was the problem. A while later, the survivors were having a meeting and freaked out when they were told to face the skeletons. A member suggested they stay idle and wait for the skeleton to disperse. The cop explained that if the skeleton dispersed, more people would lose their lives. They felt it wasn't their problem, but Daesu insisted that it was their chance to level up. He revealed that the skeletons were weaker since they weren't in their dungeon. Also, the sun was up, so the skeletons were weaker. Daesu left the decision for them to make. After a short moment, they divided into the hunting team and the camp defense team. Kang was pumped that he would be able to level up. Daesu introduced himself and Kang saw the potential he had. Juwon introduced himself, but Kang felt he was a loser. Hannah passed and the guys got bricked. She briefly introduced herself and walked out. Kang understood why she hid some info about herself. Just then, a rich kid named Jang introduced himself and Kang felt cringe with all the information he gave. From his look, you could tell he was a big nerd. His getup was very expensive, but made him look like a clown. Daesu introduced Kang, and the survivors wondered who he was. He was about to speak and got interrupted by Jang. Kang was surprised Jang knew him. Jang remembered that he was a loser picked on in high school. Kang was surprised. He was the same fatty back in high school. Jang couldn't forget his smelly face. However, Kang wondered if Jang got isekai'd. Jang put his hands on Kang and Hannah slapped his hands away. She got pissed that he was messing with her king and told him to apologize. Braces and glasses told them not to fight. Kang then revealed he was Kei. Everyone was shocked with his reveal. They couldn't believe the legendary Kei was with them. Hana had known and felt she was his true stan. Daesun apologized for his misunderstanding while Jang's jaw dropped. Jang argued that Katie couldn't be a loser. He saw Kang's shirt and knew it was an item from the skeleton boss. He still couldn't believe Kang was Kei. Jang tried to catch him lacking and asked for his level. Kang replied that he was in level 37, and Jang figured he wasn't Katie. Jang then revealed that Kei was a foreigner, and Kang was lost. Later that day, they were out on the streets. Kang used his dragon eye to find the skeletons while they defeated them. Jang wondered if Kang had the sharing hand. Daesu gulped, then suddenly a bunch of skeletons arrived. Daesu threw his spear at them, then told his team to face the skeletons 2 against 1. A member was having a tough time and Hana took the skeleton down for him. Meanwhile, Kang was called out to by Jang, planning to show him who's the top G. He faced the skeletons while moving in disturbing ways. He claimed victory, and Kang remembered he was the nicest amongst his bullies. Back then he got paid a lot just to buy bread and decided to let him have his fun. Kang had other plans, which was for Gorong to help find a dungeon. He was led to a direction, and when he faced the skeletons, there was nothing. Kang threw a skull at Gorong after discovering he was being used. The sun came down and they decided to head back. The survivors were glad they were able to level up, and Daesu was happy for them. Though, he didn't understand why Kang was arguing with his pet like a married couple. Suddenly, Gorong sensed something and Kang was sure it was a dungeon. They were ready to leave, but Kang told them he wanted to check somewhere first. They went into a flower shop and it reeked like someone's sweaty gym clothes. Suddenly, a system message appeared and they were given a quest to defeat the Plant King. Kang could tell this was the cause of Gorong tweaking at the camp. He figured the gas made the guy with the painted nails look sus. There were different kinds of dungeons in Dreamside, and Deadly Garden was known to spread viruses during a dungeon break. Once the virus enters a human, they become monsters. Kang was sad the virus had to affect the people at camp, who were basically NPCs. Fortunately, E-rank players had resistance, but one of the members wanted to bail. The cops told them they had to face the dungeon since a dungeon break would soon happen. Kang wished they had found it sooner. The useless members wanted to leave, so Kang and Daesu came up with a plan. After some time, Kang, Hana, Daesu, and Jang went into the portal gate. After some time, they were deep inside the dungeon. Daesu looked back and felt he picked their best lineup. A few moments ago, they agreed on a small-scale attack with the best members. Daesu knew 99% of their attacking force was Hana and Kang. But since the dungeon needed 4 members, they tagged along. Suddenly, Jang argued that bringing Kang was a bad idea since he was a sad loser. Jang reached for a fruit and Kang shoved his hands, telling him not to touch anything. Jang acted like a spoiled brat and grabbed the fruit, about to eat it. Fortunately, Hana shot it and was pissed with his childish behavior. Jang thanked her and Daesu realized he shouldn't have picked him. After a long trip, they finally arrived at the boss room, where the Plant King awaited their arrival. The mob of the Plant King had a kink of watching players lose their lives. As Jang stared at the flowers, Kang warned them and revealed that they could get an antidote after defeating the Plant King. It was the only way to cure the infected people at the camp. Jang told them to trust him while looking cringe. The smell got worse and suddenly the Plant King was up. Kang was frightened and told them to look out. The Plant King attacked, but they were able to dodge. Daesu asked if they were okay, and Hana immediately shot at the monster. The Plant King shrieked and Jang told Kang to move so he could flex in front of Hana. Kang pulled him back and he fell. Jang was pissed, then Kang pointed out that there was a monster beneath him. He shrieked like a little girl, and Kang stabbed the monster. Kang told him to back off if he was going to hold them back. Kang activated his dragon eyes and figured out the best route to the Plant King. Daesu wanted to depend on Hana, but Kang told him it wasn't Sigma. Kang figured she could defeat the Plant King if she was buffed up. After some time, Hana shot the Plant King and told Kang she needed more potions to defeat it. He told her he couldn't since it was the MC's role to defeat the boss. He rushed towards the monster and Jang wondered what he was thinking. Just then, the Plant King attacked at once, but Kang was able to slash through it. Jang couldn't believe his eyes and Daesu watched like a proud father. He continued his attack and Jang finally accepted that he was Katie. The Plant King attacked with its vines, but Kang jumped towards it and sliced it in half. They were all amazed while Jang's soul left his body at Kang's incredible feat. After defeating the Plant King, Kang leveled up and got some items. Kang stood like he was taking a photo shoot. Later that night, Hana was tired and Daesu watched Kang. Kang looked through his reward and was glad he got the Thorn Gauntlet. It was a gauntlet that could be used as a short sword. He found it useful and wasn't surprised with how far his level had gone. He was glad D-rank dungeons would soon be a piece of cake. Just then, Jang was still in denial that Kang was actually Katie. Kang avoided him since he wasn't ready for his crazy. Later, Hana took her gun like she was ready for a school shooting, warning them of the danger ahead. They went into the subway and found some defeated skeletons along with the members of the camp. They looked for survivors, but then Kang found some footprints and figured what happened. Daesu yelled out for the survivors and Kang told him it was the dungeon sickness that affected the people. Hana didn't expect the virus to spread after they defeated the monster. Suddenly they heard a voice that sounded like a deranged ghost. They found someone trapped under the rubble and helped him out. His eyes didn't have life in them, so Kang equipped a potion of revitalization and gave it to him. His eye had a spark like he was stoned. They asked him what happened, and he told them a monster appeared at the entrance and were prepared to face it. However, they were attacked by zombies from behind. He began to breathe heavily and suddenly lost his mind. Kang knew that a healer would have been able to cure him, but at that point, he was a goner. Kang was shocked to hear someone turn into a monster, since there were 3 stages before that. It became clear that someone was involved. The survivor was tweaking, and they decided to end his misery. They decided to head out. Meanwhile, there was a monster patiently waiting for them. A few moments later, a zombie was crawling up the stairs but got shot by Hana. She told Kang that the zombies couldn't be cured, masking her mass-shooting urges. Seeing the trail of defeated zombies, Kang figured the people escaped through that route. More zombies climbed the stairway and Daesu felt uncomfortable. Kang then handled the zombies himself and told them to follow him. Daesu was glad he could be useless since he had Kang. They went deeper into the tunnel and later arrived at a neighboring station. It was a ghost station, but they later found some scattered footprints. The footprints headed to the station Daesu arranged in case of an emergency. Suddenly, a monster was in the shadows and Kang noticed. He rushed towards the tunnel with his sword in place and struck the monster. The monster escaped and Daesu told them to be on their guard. After having a good look at the monster, he recognized who it was. Kang told him not to have cold feet, reminding him that she was now a tool to gather XP. Kang was pissed since he couldn't hit anymore. Kang was prepared to face the monster and planned to end things quickly. She rushed at him, and Kang kicked her in the chest. He was surprised it wasn't soft. She struck him, but he was able to block. He sliced her arms, so she used her tongue to attack. After Daesu saw her tongue, he knew she was a baddie. Kang told him to back off since he wasn't thinking straight, and Hana told the cop to chill. The monster attacked and Kang jumped over her and sliced her neck. Kang was glad he defeated the monster since it would be impossible with his stats. He grabbed his sword firmly and Daesu told them to prepare for battle. Suddenly, a horde of monsters came to pay a visit. A horde of monsters came storming in and Daesu wondered if they were victims of the virus. Kang confirmed it. The monsters came closer, but then Hana noticed some monsters at the back. They were surrounded, but Kang told them to prepare for battle. Jang attacked the monster and it had no effect. After Jang realized he was useless trash, Kang came to his rescue. Jang was sweating bullets, and Kang wondered if the other survivors were at the emergency station. Hana revealed that they had to be there since it was easier to restock there. He told her they needed to hurry there, but she was worried about the monsters they would have to face. Daesu didn't want to be left out of the convo, but Kang told him he would explain later. He sliced the monsters and told them to follow him. The stage 3 Dungeon Sickness transforms humans to monsters based on their desire. Kang revealed that it was easy to defeat the monsters if they knew their desire. He told them a monster having an extra eye was a manifestation of their desire to see more. The monster attacked and Kang jumped over it. He took out his phone and showed the monster his search history. The monster was blinded, and he used the opportunity to defeat the monster. His tutorial blade broke down and Daesu offered his spear. Kang knew he was useless but couldn't take his spear. He equipped his Thorn Gauntlet. Kang put it to the test, grabbing and punching a monster with it. Kang was happy with the weapon, while Daesu wished he was younger. After a while, Kang used his dragon eyes and told them to be careful. Daesu wondered what was wrong, and he told him it was the trigger of the virus. Kang noticed that the other monsters didn't approach them. Daesu asked if the trigger was the work of the dungeon flower, and Kang agreed with him. He revealed that if they don't stop the trigger, the whole town would be doomed. Just then, Kang stepped on something sticky, and as they went forward, they found a monster. Daesu freaked out, but then, the monster ate someone in front of them. The monster then asked for likes and subscribers. In a short moment, Kang noticed the massacre that had taken place. He wondered how many people had lost their lives to the monster. Daesu asked about the trigger, and Kang told him that it was similar to the previous monsters. After taking the dungeon flower, they become monsters depending on their desires. They had no plan, so they needed to face it to find its weakness. Hannah was up to speed, and Kang revealed that someone planted the trigger at their camp. Kang used his dragon eye, and could tell the monster was tough. He figured the monster would be slow since it was a fatty. In Dreamside, players didn't depend on higher stats to defeat a monster. Each monster had buffs and weaknesses that could be exploited. He could tell that the monster had a huge AP. The monster acted, and they all evaded it. Suddenly, Kang recognized the screaming of the monster, and Daesu figured it was Mankey. Chang and Hannah were surprised. Jang recalled he was a YouTuber known for his cringe catchphrase. Mankey was sent to jail for live streaming cannibalism. Some people thought it was fake, but it was proven to be real and got sent to jail. Mankey told them to like and subscribe, but Daesu freaked out, seeing it growing multiple parts. It attacked, but Kang avoided it. Jang was dead weight, and Daesu came to his rescue. Daesu knew it was beyond his paycheck and left it to Kang. There was a slime next to Kang, and an arm came out. He realized he couldn't let his guard down while Daesu ran. He threw his spear to create an opening and Kang utilized it, but had no effect. Daesu was pissed. The monster transformed its arms to an axe, telling them to like and subscribe before attacking. It destroyed everything while making disturbing sounds. It spotted Hannah and attacked, but she smirked, took out her gun and shot it. At that point, her gun was trash, but Kang told her to be careful while trying to figure out its weakness. After a while, he told Hannah to back him up. They ran towards the monster, and before it could attack, Hannah blew its face. Later, Kang gave it a brain-shifting punch. It tried to punch Kang, but got its knuckles smashed in. Everyone paused and were glad Kang's attack was working. However, the monster was pissed and attacked Kang, but he quickly evaded it. Daesu was confident Kang could defeat the monster, but Kang needed more damage. He told Hannah and Daesu his plan. After a while, Jang made himself useful by body-shaming the monster. It opened its mouth and suddenly, Daesu used its spear to hold it in place. Meanwhile, Hannah shot into its mouth and it exploded within its stomach. Hannah then alerted Kang. A few moments ago, Kang told them to buy him some time so he could upgrade and unlock some skills. Kang unlocked his magic skill concentration. The monster was saying gibberish and tried to trap him, but then he broke it with a single punch. Kang ran towards the monster and promised to like and subscribe after sending him to hell. He was able to defeat the monster and leveled up. Later, Mankey returned to his human form and Daesu confirmed it was him. Kang wanted to know who was involved in triggering him and spotted a sign on Mankey. Meanwhile, a shady character watched Kang from an orb and was shocked Katie was alive. The player had 5 farms with different triggers, but had never seen anyone with such a strong attack. Suddenly, Jichin, the shady character, was interrupted by a smug-looking guy named Minho. Jichin put down his hoodie for fan service. The company was the dark side of Dreamside. They were cancerous to the game and had a common mark to prove it. Jichin wanted to show Minho what he found but was informed that Kei was alive. Jichin was surprised and Minho explained that Kei wasn't in the labyrinth of choice. They knew Kei would be an issue, so Jichin told him to find Kei since he might know about their farms. Meanwhile, Kang, Hana, Daesu and Jang ran deeper into the tunnel. Some time later, Jichin had unharassable data and could use monsters to understand the current situation of Earth, but was shocked Katie was alive. He was frightened Katie was already an advanced player. He woke up from his daydream and Minho wondered why he was worried since Katie was still a new. He suggested they inform the higher-ups so they could end Katie immediately. Meanwhile, Juwan was running away from a horde of monsters and wondered where they got their stamina from. He was frightened and knew if he couldn't meet up with Daesu he was cooked. Suddenly, there was a light. A train was passing by and Juwan was surprised since it was a ghost station. He decided to take his chances with the train and finally got in. He was glad to be safe from the monster and was glad he could meet up with Daesu and the others. Just then, a system message appeared that he had entered a D-rank dungeon. Jiwan was left speechless. Meanwhile, Kang and the gang headed to the emergency station, but Jang was still surprised the loser at his school was Ki. He was a huge fan of Ki and started meat-trying him. Hannah wondered if the virus affected Jang and wanted to off him. Daesu looked around and concluded there was no survivor, although Kang was confident there was. Kang explained that someone was allowing the infected to survive so they could spread the virus. As a result, someone else would become the new trigger. Kang had a clue that the company was involved, since they were the bad side of Dreamside. Kay was able to destroy them, but they harbored hatred towards him. It didn't matter who it was, but Kang knew they needed to be stopped. They arrived at the emergency station. Daesu checked their supplies and later found out something was missing. He was glad someone was there, but Kang felt the people at the camp should be players. Though he knew children, the elderly, and the injured couldn't be players. Hannah explained that the internet was cut off so people couldn't become players. He asked how she was able to use the internet, and she replied that her phone was upgraded. She revealed that she could contact players through her wristwatch. She went on that the Ark was the only way to become a player. Meanwhile, at the camp, there were countless lifeless bodies around, and Minho realized that Jichin was right. He spotted a train and wondered why the dungeon was there. One of the members suggested they go in, but Minho figured they didn't want to live. He told them the train was a D-ranked dungeon, and if they went in, they would be goners. The members insisted that they look for Katie, but Minho was sure the goblins would take care of him. A while later, Hannah revealed that if they were at the Ark, they could upgrade their phones, and Kang was confident the survivors went there. Daesu reminded them that it wasn't the time to flirt. Suddenly, something sus was going on in Kang's pants. Gruong came out and revealed there was something close by. Kang then told them a survivor was close by. A while later, Gruong led the way, and Hannah wondered why someone would run away from them. Kang agreed with her, but hid the fact that they weren't chasing the survivor from their camp. Later, Kang figured they were being lured. Moments later, they arrived at the waiting room. Suddenly, an arrow was shot at Jang, but Kang caught it in time. Jang was grateful he was still alive, but then a smoke screen came out of nowhere. An arrow was shot at Daesu and Kang caught it. Another one was shot, but Kang couldn't reach it in time. Fortunately, she wasn't useless trash like her teammates and shot the arrow. Kang was glad, but she made him aware they needed to take the hostile person out. More arrows were shot at them, but Kang was able to avert it. He found them and was about to attack. Suddenly, a kobold appeared and Kang noticed something. He told Hannah to hold fire, but her American spirit couldn't be stopped. She shot the kobold on the arm and revealed she missed on purpose. Jang began to meat-try Kang. He told them that the kobold wasn't a monster but a human, which was the case for the rest of the kobolds. The nerdy kobold asked if they were part of the workers, but got confused. He introduced himself as Hunwo, claiming there was a misunderstanding. Daesu asked why he said the kobolds were humans. Kang revealed that the color of the kobold's name was white, signifying players. They were also different for the infected humans. He asked them why they attacked, and they revealed that it was the fault of the workers. The opening day of Dreamside 2, Four Eyes was shocked to see a system message, and realized it was from Dreamside. He was panting heavily with a sword in his hands. Four Eyes was calm and decided to get used to his new life, rather than worrying. He was a Dreamside addict and had attained a high level. However, he went to the military and couldn't register for the server shutdown reward. With the experience he had, he faced the goblins alone. After a while, he formed a group with some survivors. A short while later, he came out of the normal difficulty of the Labyrinth of Choice. He barely made it out alive. Since he was the only one to complete the normal level, his teammates depended on him for survival. He knew they were cooked without a high-level player. Suddenly, they met with a mysterious merchant who offered them items and food for free. He was a generous man, and they survived through his help. Unfortunately, he was a fraud, and used their souls for payment of the items. The food they were given was drugged, and their contract had a fine if they couldn't pay. The fine was that they would lose their bodies. Soon after, the workers appeared and took their bodies, placing their souls in kobolds. Every week, the workers came to collect interest from them, which was their memories. Kang figured it was the reason some couldn't speak. He wanted to know if any human had come by but couldn't respond. Kang inquired about their interest, and Hyunwoo told him it was the same. Kang couldn't wait to meet the workers. Just then, a kobold ran, announcing that the workers had arrived, and Kang immediately hid. Hannah was worried about Kang, and he told her he was a little angry. He told them that the kobold had the same interest, but some lost the memory to speak. It was clear that the memory that each of them had was different. Therefore, those who had less memory were children. They were shocked, but Kang revealed that if they lost all their memory, they would become monsters. After hearing that, Desu was pissed. Kang then wondered what the kobolds were planning. They used a smoke screen on the workers, and the goblin swung his club at them. They shot him with arrows, which became grenades and blew him up. They were glad, but then, things turned dark when the goblin grabbed a kobold and squashed it. Everyone was shocked, and the goblin threw the kobold away, telling them to pay up. The goblin spotted someone and ran towards a kobold. Kang sliced its hand off, and the goblin was surprised. He tried to slice his head off, but then it suddenly appeared at his back. Luckily, Hannah shot it. He appreciated her help, but then the goblin healed itself. Kang knew the goblin would be tough and figured it was a normal player. The goblin tried to act Sigma, but Kang didn't care about that. He grabbed his horn and smashed it on the floor. Kang took the goblin's club and smashed its face. He revealed that to become a goblin, one had to murder its kind. Suddenly, a fiery presence appeared, and it was the goblin's bro. He activated his dragon eye and saw it was a higher-level goblin. Kang left the small fries for his team and went to face the goblin. He went through the flames and met up with the goblin. The goblin thought he could handle a punch and got his brain smashed. Kang defeated the goblin and leveled up. He had a paper in his hands, which was the contract of the kobolds. He figured there should be a way to obstruct the contract. Meanwhile, Hannah and the team were just about done, when suddenly the souls of the players left their bodies. Desu freaked out, and Hannah asked Kang what to do. He looked at the paper and an extra rule appeared, revealing that the contractor would have complete authority of the contractee if there was an issue with the workers. All their souls combined and were getting away. Kang told them to follow it if they want to save the children. A while later, a train was passing by. Kang didn't expect to see a train since it was a ghost station. Suddenly, Grong reacted to it, and Kang realized it was a dungeon. The door opened and a system message popped up, telling them to get on the train. Dungeons were the main theme of Dreamside in different varieties. There were moving dungeons in the form of boats, planes, and carriages. Kang saw the train and immediately knew it was a moving dungeon. The souls went into the train and Kang wondered what their next step would be. He told Desu if they entered the train, they might lose the chance of finding people from the camp. Desu figured there were no survivors and decided that it would be best to save the children instead. Kang heard him loud and clear, so they went into the train. Meanwhile, Juwan was having difficulties on the train. Baby goblins attacked, but he knew that he couldn't last 10 minutes. The goblins were messing with him, but couldn't do anything about it. He was pushed to the floor, but he had smashed, but they stopped midway to look at his stupid face. Juwan was helpless, and they punched him in the back. He failed the quest and became a target of the attendant. He received backshots from the attendant before he was taken away. He opened his eyes, only to be greeted by a guy on crack. He ran, but later realized a bunch of druggies were around him. Meanwhile, at the far end of the train, a bunch of baby goblins were pissed their toy was taken away. They heard a sound, but found out the Avengers had assembled. Kang wasn't prepared to see baby goblins, but knew how strong they were. Hannah was surprised with the interior of the train, since it looked different from the outside. This was because it was a D-ranked dungeon. It was the same for the E-ranked dungeon at the school. Kang was more worried that from the window, they weren't underground. Kang got a system message that they were in a D-ranked dungeon. Their quest was to get a ticket before becoming targets of the attendant. The goblin rushed to attack, but Kang punched their lights out and got a ticket. The remaining members did the same and got a ticket. The dungeon seemed fairly simple, but Kang told them to throw away their tickets. He revealed that it would be slower that way. They fed their tickets to Garong. Hannah was worried they'd become targets of the attendant, but Kang told her it was the only way to save the children. Kang's plan was to defeat the attendant, but then Jang noticed the goblins hiding. Jang thought they were scared of Kang, but Kang told them to be on guard. They failed the quest and the attendant arrived. It asked Kang for his ticket and Kang told him he didn't have one. Before he could say a word, Kang gave him a jaw-breaking uppercut. After receiving the uppercut, the attendant was seeing birds. He grabbed his club and was about to smash Kang. Unfortunately, Kang jumped and grabbed the attendant's horn. He set him up for a massive knee to the face, along with a knuckle punch to the gut. After messing up the goblin, Kang asked if he was the attendant. He threatened the goblin with a blade to its throat, and his teammate wondered if they were the villains. A message of their quest appeared, but Kang didn't care. He asked the goblin some questions, but it acted dumb. He asked where he kept the souls, but the goblin didn't know. Kang threatened to smash his butt, and he told him where it was. A few moments later, the goblin looked like a dad, back from a 9-to-5 job. Kang asked for the key to the location, knowing the goblin had full access to it. The goblin was stalling and Kang took it by force. He defeated the goblin and got an odd pouch. Kang didn't feel pity for finishing him off, but then they felt he could be a victim. Kang revealed that the goblins were different from the kobolds. Players become goblins after murdering and eating their kind. After hearing that, they wished they had an unhear potion. Kang told them not to feel pity for the goblins. Later, they arrived at the next car and were given a stat boost. They continued further, but Dason was worried that they didn't complete the quest. Kang revealed that there were several ways to clear a dungeon. Luckily, they were using an Easter egg method. He told them to trust him since he was a cheat himself. Soon, they arrived at the location. An ugly dude spotted them. Kang looked around and spotted some chained prisoners, and figured they were merchants. Just then, the merchant asked if they had tickets. Kang smirked, revealing he didn't have one, which infuriated the merchant. It looked like they were about to kiss, but Kang then asked how hot the weather was. Confused math lady, the merchant, along with his team, were dumbstruck. The merchant told Kang to follow him, and Daesu told Hannah to get ready. The merchant offered them food, and Hannah and the team were as clueless as the viewers. They sat with the merchants, and they introduced themselves to Kang. Kang appreciated the gesture, but Daesun wanted to know what was going on. Kang revealed that he got a secret code from the attendant's pouch. Meanwhile, the merchants were fans of Hannah, and wanted an autograph. Kang realized that he needed information if he wanted to save the children. He took a sip of his drink, but then noticed they were surrounded by goblins. The merchant revealed that their code was an old one. Kang equipped his thorn gauntlet, and they prepared for battle. They defeated the goblins, and the merchant wanted to bounce. Unfortunately for them, Daesu blocked their path. The merchants thought they could gang up on Gramps, but Daesu had been looking for cannon fodders to flex on. After a while, Kang asked for information on everything they had. The merchant told them their boss was Jack, and Kang acted like he saw a ghost. The merchant smirked, thinking Kang had messed up. Suddenly, Kang laughed like a maniac, and his team were concerned. He was glad he could meet Jack. Jack was a dungeon merchant who rose to the top with a non-combat class. He was known for being cruel and trustworthy. His offers were fair, and he possessed the best items in Dreamside. Jack was also known as Mirage. Just then, Kang grabbed the merchant and told him Jack stole from him. Suddenly, the merchant was Oding, and their souls left their bodies, similar to the kobolds. Hannah wondered if Jack was involved, but Kang was as surprised as she was. Jang asked about Jack, and Hannah revealed that she was his victim. Kang was surprised and thought he could have scammed the top players. They decided to look for more evidence, and Hannah wanted to have a chance to beat him up. They released the prisoners, but Kang came across someone unusual. One of the prisoners had an earring worth a fortune. It was a unique item only one person had, and that person was Jack. After being released, the boy claimed that there was a misunderstanding. Kang told him to explain the earring, but came up with dumb excuses. Hannah fired a bullet in his direction, having had enough of his bullshit. She asked if he was responsible for what was going on, and he apologized. He revealed that he had tricked them because he thought the servers were gone. They paused, then explained that they were not referring to Dreamside 1. He apologized to Kay, and Kang asked how he knew. After a while, he revealed he was looking for his imposter, and stalked Kang through a GPS. He figured that he could make money by being with Kang. Meanwhile, Daesu and Kang were shocked that Jack was a kid. Jack was shy to tell Hannah he was a fan, since it wasn't Gangsta, but she was surprised he knew she was Clark. She remembered him from her fan signing, and Jack mocked her for being a smelly old man. Hannah grabbed his cheeks, and Kang asked about his imposter. Jack revealed that he just got the info that someone was using his name. A few months back, when Jack couldn't stalk Kang, he met up with some shady merchants, talking about Jack. Although he accepted their food and contract, he was able to nullify it using his earring. He followed the shady merchants and heard them talk about an auction held by the imposter. They were surprised, but then he revealed there was a black market close by. Kang asked about the druggy prisoners. Jack asked if they got any message after defeating the merchants, but they didn't. He revealed that they moved their souls to empty bodies, and the prisoners were auctioned as extra lives. The host of the event was Ratface, his imposter. Hannah asked why his imposter was called the Master of Goblins, and he told her that he controlled them. Kang understood everything clearly, and they were ready to head out. Jack stopped them, revealing that he had a plan. A few moments later, they were at the top of the train. Kang wondered what Jack was getting them into. He told them he knew the cabin where the black market was held, so they could sneak in. Suddenly, they were given a hidden quest, and Kang was regretting his decision. The monsters ambushed them, but Kang was in a hurry. Jack informed him that physical attacks were useless against specters. Jack didn't realize Kang was the honored one. He applied a buff and was able to defeat the specter. Jack vanished and Kang couldn't find him. Suddenly, he appeared next to him and told Kang it was his invisibility suit. He warned him not to defeat the specter since it would draw the boss mummy to them. Just then, Kang was glad he chose Jack's shortcut and had a good idea. The specter was passing by, and Hannah positioned herself to take it out. She shot at it, but Kang was able to stop the bullet. He told her not to finish the specter, but she wanted to know when he became Flash. He told Daesu and Jang the same thing, revealing that defeating the specter would summon their mother, Banshee. Since they didn't have enough time to face the boss, he planned on using her. As usual, everyone was confused. A few moments later, Jang was attacked by the specter. He begged for mercy as he ran away from the specter, along with Daesu. He regretted following Kang's order to lure the specters. Meanwhile, Ratface was having wine, watching a death battle. A goblin appeared and Ratface wondered what he wanted. The goblin was about to state its business, but fake Jack threw his glass at him.
Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry.
He was tired of the goblin and wondered why he was ogling at him. Fake Jack had the goblin headpiece that allowed him to control goblins. The goblin bowed, and he asked what the goblin wanted. He reported that the attendant had been attacked and showed him the footage. Fake Jack knew the attendant wasn't a joke and wondered who defeated him. Just then, he spotted Hannah, and his jaw dropped. He got bricked and told the goblin to capture Hannah. Meanwhile, Kang and his team were in the train. Hannah was worried about Daesu and Jang. Kang had faith in them and believed they would be fine. Finally, they arrived at the entrance of the black market. Jack revealed that they used masks within the black market, but had a single mask. Hannah wanted to know the plan. Jack gave his invisible cloak to Kang and told him to sneak in and gather information. They needed one more mask, but Jack had a better idea. A while later, in the black market, Kang sneaked in with the invisible cloak. Kang was impressed with how big the dungeon was. Just then, he saw a suspicious goblin entering a room and followed him. However, Jang and Daesu were still running away from the specter. Daesu was impressed with Jang's speed, and he told the cop he wouldn't lose. Jang was worried about Kang and Hannah. Meanwhile, at the black market, Jack had his mask on, and Hannah was completely exposed. Hannah was worried for her life. Just then, a goblin stopped them and asked if they were merchants. Hannah took down her hoodie and used her face card on the goblin. The goblin realized it was Hannah and knew fake Jack wanted her. He took them to a private space and smirked, while a creepy dude watched in the shadows. Later, an orc was shrieking, and Kang was shocked it was being auctioned. Kang put on his cloak after hearing some voices. A goblin was passing by with a prisoner, but then he found out the prisoner was Jawan. Kang was glad he was conscious, but couldn't save him at the moment. He ran out. After a while, he decided to look for a high-ranked goblin. Fortunately, he found one and attacked him. Meanwhile, Hannah asked Jack where they were being taken to, but he also didn't have an idea. They arrived at their destination. The door opened and they were greeted by Ratface. Hannah spotted the three-horned goblin and knew he was bad news. Jack could tell that Ratface was his imposter. Fake Jack was glad to meet Hannah, but then Jack noticed the goblin headpiece. He figured it was how he controlled the goblins, but felt he used it the wrong way. Fake Jack didn't want a sausage party, so he asked why Jack was there. Fake Jack was about to order his guard goblin, Lycan, to finish Jack. He saved his butt and Fake Jack stopped Lycan. Jack started meat riding him. Fake Jack offered a drink, which Jack accepted. Later, Fake Jack had a drink with Hannah and Jack. He wanted to know Jack's business, and Jack revealed he wanted to make an agreement. He informed Ratface that he had a client that wanted to pass the black market, but he was told he had to pay. Jack offered $10 million, and Hannah wondered how he came across such an amount. She was impressed, but Fake Jack claimed it wasn't enough. He hid the identity of his client, claiming they were famous in the Ark. Fake Jack had to guess who it could be, but Jack had no clue what he was doing. Fake Jack brought the documents, and Jack was surprised he already had it. Jack wondered who he was being misunderstood with. They signed the papers. Suddenly, Jack had a chain mark on his wrist. Jack was freaking out, but Ratface told him not to worry. A system message appeared that Jack's body and inventory had been locked. Jack knew he was in trouble, but couldn't believe his imposter name was Jack. Jack told him that he also had something up his sleeve. Suddenly, someone broke into the room. Jack was shocked, but Jack thanked his stars. A bunch of specters intercepted fake Jack, so he cried out to Lycan. Lycan attacked the specters, and Jack was overjoyed. Lycan continued the onslaught, and Jack told the goblins to stop Desu and his team. Hannah was glad to see Desu, but Jack decided to punish Jack. He activated the contract, and Hannah was worried. Jack was shocked his contract was nullified, and wondered how he did it. Jack didn't answer his question, and he started whining like a little girl. Jack informed Jack that he had something else to worry about. Suddenly, someone appeared after he defeated all the specters. Lycan was on his guard, but then Matt arrived. Jack looked back and saw a MILF was behind him. Meanwhile, Kang defeated the high-ranking goblin and asked it some questions. He asked about the double-sided contract, and it revealed it was with Jack. Kang asked why they treated Kang like their boss. Then he revealed that Jack had the goblin headpiece. He then understood the situation and asked where Jack was. The goblin diverted the question, so he punched him. He wore his cloak and rushed towards Hannah. A while later, Manny appeared, but her aura was too much for Desu and Jang. After closing her eyes and opening it, she released a ghost wall. They could hear the voices of countless people crying. She was the highest-ranking specter boss, Banshee. They hoped she would face Lycan for them. She came down and was ready to face off Lycan. Jack didn't know how they lured her, but was confident Lycan would clap her. Lycan went for the assault, but the specter boss evaded it. The attack caused a huge shockwave, which they blocked with a shield. The goblins near them passed out, and Jack was glad he activated the shield. Desu knew they couldn't get involved in their match. Banshee mocked Lycan for being a miserable king, and he got ticked off. Meanwhile, some goblins arrived, but lost their heads. Lycan saw their lifeless bodies and tried to attack Banshee. She kept her distance from him, but Lycan decided to hit her with his club, but missed. She moved around him, and it looked like Lycan was losing. Just then, Jack told him to fight properly and protect him. Lycan smiled and took out his chains. He threw it at Banshee and wrapped it around her neck. After smashing her on the floor, he choked her and finally defeated her. Lycan gazed at Hannah, and she got shivers. Jack instructed Lycan to finish Kang's team but leave Hannah alive. Hannah shot at Lycan, but it had no effect. At that moment, she knew they were cooked. Lycan was about to attack them. Fortunately, Kang arrived just in time and cut off Lycan's arm. Jack meat-ride Kang, and Hannah was glad her knight had arrived. Everyone was glad to see Kang. Kang didn't expect this outcome, but then he spotted Banshee's weapon. He gave back the invisibility cloak and went for the assault. He jumped and punched Lycan, but he blocked it. Later, Lycan attacked and Kang evaded it. He punched Kang, and he was able to hold his ground. Hannah was surprised Lycan was that strong with just an arm. Desu decided to secure the dual contract, but Jack told him not to worry about it. He opened his inventory and brought out the dual contract. Jack was shocked he didn't have access to his items and asked what Jack did. Jack revealed why his transaction was always clean. Any lies spoken in front of his earring would be bared by the speaker. Just then, Jack spotted a chain wrapped around his wrist. His inventory and body were given to Jack. He told Jack he owned him, according to his contract. Jack began to lose his cool, and Jack told him to check his head. He realized the goblin headpiece was gone, and Jack revealed that he knew how he controlled the goblins. Jack was about to pull something from his inventory, and Jack ordered the goblins to finish them. Jang told Jack to wear the headpiece, but he told him he couldn't control the already existing goblin. Jang was left protecting Jack. Meanwhile, Kang and Lycan continued their battle, but Kang got punched to the wall. Lycan was the strongest T-rank boss, and at his current level, he couldn't face him. Jack announced that he had secured the headpiece, and Kang took Banshee's weapon. Jack felt Kang was a clown if he thought he could win with that weapon. Lycan went on the assault and smashed Kang with his club. Kang was sent flying and couldn't believe he was taking damage. He activated his dragon eye and could see a trail of chains. The journey to save the children continued. Will Kang save the children in time, or will he be ambushed by the company? That is it for this video. Comment, Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel for similar content. And as always, thanks for watching.